Alright, welcome back. Today we're going to be reacting to how 3,000 pounds of tofu are made or are handmade a day. At the place I work at, we serve tofu and I always wonder what the fuck is tofu. So today we're going to find out what tofu is. Watch my boss be watching this like, how the fuck do you not know what tofu is?
Buddha is the oldest tofu factory in America.
Buddha?
And at this shop, they're slicing up 3,000 pounds of it a day. And that's Jason, a former pro baseball player who took over Oda 3 years ago. Jason learned how to hand mold tofu the traditional Japanese way, from the original owners.
It is very cheap to just buy a machine and just push buttons and out comes a block of tofu. But to actually handcraft it, it is definitely a lost art.
But because of a growing tofu industry and a spike in soybean prices, Jason is juggling tradition with demand.
I put in 11 and 12-hour days, 6 days a week, so does my mom.
We visited the Portland factory to see how Jason's turning buckets of beans.
There's soybeans?
Welcome to Oda Tofu. I get here at 2:30 in the morning, Monday through Saturday, and make tofu and start the day.
The night before, workers pull out giant bags of soybeans sourced from Iowa.
And they're dried soybeans, so they are very hard. You could hardly break it with a hammer. And we soak them the night before, then they become really soft.
It takes 10 hours of soaking.
Depending on the temperature of the outside, we tend to soak them longer if it's colder or shorter if it's hotter. We want that pure white in the soybeans. Yeah, these are still pretty good.
Cooks transfer the soft
Are they
soybeans to
boiling
one
or
of
just
two grinders.
normal water?
We grind the soybeans, make a slush. Then we put it into our cookers, which cook to about 100 degrees Celsius.
Then the mixture flows through a giant pipe into a filtering bag in the pressing machine. This machine squeezes out the soy milk. The milk comes out the other end and drops into another filter.
So we double filter it to get as pure of soy milk as we can. Okay, this is hot.
What's left is a byproduct called okada, basically the leftover bits from the beans like the shells.
So this nylon that catches the rest of the okada, people use it in like baking recipes and stuff like that. But also we give it to farmers to feed their cows and pigs.
Oh, okay.
Some of the soy milk gets bottled by hand. It's sold across Portland, but the rest gets turned into tofu.
Soy cream?
Our tofu is made out of 3 ingredients: soybeans, water, and coagulant.
The mixture first gets a splash of coagulant.
So
coagulant. I thought you said
traditional
wagulant.
Japanese coagulant. We can adjust the amount of coagulant that we use to make the firmness that we want. I will actually make a firm, so I'm gonna add some more coagulant because it could be separated from the curds in the water a little bit more. It's kind of like making cheese, right?
Like in cheese, the coagulant separates the whey or liquid from the proteins, which clump up into curds. That takes about 15 minutes.
So this is what it looks like after it's curded. So these curds are actually nice and like fluffy and soft.
That scrambled egg-looking mixture is spooned into molds. Jason hand shapes it using a cheesecloth.
So now we just gotta press them into the firmness that we want.
It's pretty soft, almost like a water bed.
We make medium, firm, and extra firm. It depends on how much water we squeeze out.
The curds on the firm and the extra firm are finer and harder, so it's easier to get water out. The medium's nice and soft.
A hydraulic press then helps squeeze out the water.
So that's how they do it,
After
okay?
it's pressed, Jason carefully flips the tofu into a giant bath. He slices it along the lines from the molds. Tofu headed to restaurants is placed in buckets. Some of it gets fried into what's called age.
So he is
This shit looks like fucking donuts.
chopsticks. Yeah, that is not easy to do with the flimsy tofu.
Blocks bound for stores get fished from the water and put in boxes.
From soaked soybeans to the final product, probably about an hour. Everything else is really controlled by hand.
Although tofu originates from China, using nigari to coagulate is uniquely Japanese. Oda's recipe and hand molding techniques come from Japan and date back to the founding of the company.
So Oda Tofu started in 1911.
Saizo Oda immigrated to Portland from Okayama, Japan. Shortly after, Saizo and his wife Sheena opened a tofu shop using the same 3 ingredients Jason uses. Back then, Oda was one of many tofu factories, serving the Japanese and Chinese American communities in East Portland. But then, Pearl Harbor happened, and 120,000 Japanese Americans were forced into internment camps.
Yeah.
Sheena and Saizo were sent to a camp.
They basically... They basically say internal camps, but I had an art teacher that told me that it was basically like concentration camp. Like they isolated or they ostracized all the Japanese people that were here in America, just because they were Japanese, just because of that whole Pearl Harbor. They're like, we can't trust any Japanese here. So it's kind of sucks. Like imagine if Mexico was to like bomb something in the U.S. and then every Mexican family members, cousins, everything, like we're just getting ostracized and sent to like the middle of nowhere just because we're Mexican. Like, bro, that's fucked up. But that's what I know about that. Anyways, tofu, I've had it like maybe once or twice, even though I work at a place that sells a lot of tofu. You guys want to know? It's called Sweet Green. Fire food, but the tofu is not that bad. Like when it cooks, it comes out very fluffy, very nice. But then after like an hour or two, staying in that steam table, it gets very like dried up. It looks weird. So I think that's the only downside about tofu, is that you always gotta cook it like on the instant, like in an instant. Instant? I don't know, but it has to be cooked like fresh, and like after an hour or two, it doesn't look as fresh. But I bet it still has the same taste, you know.
In Idaho,
it doesn't taste like anything, but the marinade we put is kind of like some scallion and oil and all that, so it has like a different flavor to it on top of the dressing. I mean, on top of that sauce we put on it. But the tofu is very plain, in my opinion.
died a year after arriving. In the 3 years of internment, all Japanese-owned tofu shops were closed. Many were seized, looted, or sold off. But the Oda's landlord honored their lease. And when Sheena returned to Portland alone in 1945, the shop and all its equipment was waiting for her.
That they came back and wanted to start the company again shows testament to the Ota family for wanting to do that, and then also the customers that wanted to buy the tofu and really kept the business alive.
Jason bought the business from Sheena's grandson, Ko, and his wife Eileen in 2019.
Because I heard that they were closing, and I thought it would be such a shame that a business like this would close their doors, especially with all their history. Ko Ota and Eileen Ota really taught me everything there is to know about making tofu. This is their equipment. I inherited all of this.
Jason's continued the handmade Oda tradition.
There's a reason why people or businesses don't make tofu the way that we do right now.
It's a lot of work, bro.
Hard work.
Yeah.
Everything that has to do with tofu, I am involved with the whole entire process.
You are the tofu genius.
Yeah.
Shut your dumb ass. I would have said that. I'd have been like, tofu genius, man, shut your dumb ass up, man.
Jason's production process is slower. It's hard to compete with big factories, mass manufacturing tofu.
All they have to do is push a button and out comes tofu. From the soap beans to packaging to pressing, everything is very automated. It is very different than our process. Really, yeah. I mean, that's what we're competing against because they're...
Dude, it kind of looks like bread. Like every time I see it when I'm about to cook it, it always looks like bread, and I just want to bite it, but it's not. Like it looks like marshmallows, bro. Like they look like you could just eat them, but they have a whole complete different taste, which is wild.
And the competition is getting harder as soybean prices soar. China is usually one of America's biggest soybean buyers, but in 2019, tariffs on soybeans cornered China out of the market.
Yeah.
It helped prices for our soybeans go down because the demand wasn't there.
But when tariffs were dropped in 2021, China re-entered the market, scooping up soybeans and causing prices to skyrocket. Soybean prices haven't been this high in 7 years.
Soybean prices have
$50 a pound?
Drastically, 40% in the past couple months. So I've had to increase pricing, and I think every tofu manufacturer had to.
You have to, bro.
You just can't eat that much of the cost.
But Jason's customers don't seem bothered.
We don't mind to spend more because we want high quality food. We do business with them 20 years, and the customer love it. We can never change to other brands.
To keep up with competition and supply costs, Jason has made small changes. First, he redesigned the package. Then he bought that packaging machine. He also launched Oda on social media. And his strategy has worked, attracting new young restaurant owners like Chef Tai. He's gotten a lot of buzz for his sandos, made with Oda tofu.
That looks fire.
I'm from Japan. When I had the tofu, I feel like I was in Japan. So I'm gonna make miso tofu katsu, which is vegan. The catchy for Instagram, people love it.
That's when you know like your shit is like 100% 100% on its roots. When he said, I'm from Japan, and when I tried this tofu, I felt like I was back in Japan. Dude, that's a flex right there, bro. Put that shit on top of your fucking branding. But it tastes like Japan, bro. What the fuck?
Soy milk and over
It's like, you don't understand that, like, especially for Mexican, like, when you go and drink fucking Coca-Cola over there, bro, it tastes completely different when you come here. If you were to go to a place and it had, like, Mexican Coca-Cola, you'll be like, oh, shit, this tastes like Mexico, bro. Like, that's a flex right there,
50
bro.
restaurants around Portland.
I mean, Coke is something else,
making
though.
About 80% more.
And tofu is expected to keep getting more popular. In 2020, the global market was worth $746 million,
Almost a
and it's
billion.
projected to grow by more than 5% in the next 6 years. Nutritionists say that's because it's rich in protein, amino
Yeah.
acids, and nutrients.
Tofu's really
People
good
are,
for you, bro.
I think, starting to be aware of that.
Jason thinks he has two options to face growing demand: moving to a bigger space or opening up factories in other cities. But his biggest goal? Making sure tradition isn't sacrificed for innovation.
I think it is.
I like how they cut it. That
huge
shit's so
part
smooth
here
like
in
butter, bro.
Portland and within the community, it is very exciting to own this business. But yeah, it is a huge weight on my shoulders.
So good.
Really?
Come on in.
Hey, man. That's how 3,000 pounds of tofu are handmade a day. Anyways, I'm about to click on this video. Dude, this shit looks dope. Why starting a marijuana business is so hard. Come watch it with me right now on the spot. Stop fucking watching this video and go to the next one. Alright, love you. Bye.